Now,
I call a meeting of the Town Facility Committee to order. We'll begin with the second approval of the minutes from the previous meeting.
I'll
Supervisor
make
Stroud.
the motion.
Supervisor Diamond on the second. Any discussion? Comments, changes? Not, call the question, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We will undertake the fire prevention and building codes agenda first. We have nothing under action, agenda, new business, discussion items. Go down to 5 present pending items. Employee retirements. Mr. Wallace, department head, is here with us. Turn it over to him.
Good morning, everyone. Last month, I was asked to, Kevin and I were asked to reach out to Labella, which we did do. I believe you got a copy of the email and the hourly rates that were sent back. I did have a brief discussion with Richard. They do this in multiple areas. But that is the hourly rate. I did email him back and just asked for what level we would be looking at in regards to the certifications, because the hourly rate changes. And it can go as low as the 108 and up as high as the 137, depending on the project and who may be going there. So, and in his email, he did say that their average cost typically runs between 225 and 250 per site,
First,
Per visit,
but I'm per visit.
okay. And may I ask, how many visits do they average a day?
Well, that was assuming they can do multiple visits, you know, in the same area at the same time, so they're coupling a bunch of them together.
so our recruiting, so to speak, efforts are still what they were, not really promising. So-
If I can. I do have one prospective candidate I'm probably going to try to bring on board in the next 2 weeks. And then the second position with budget times coming up, and I'm probably going to hold off until after budget to fill the second position.
But it'll be in the budget.
It was proposed, yes.
Supervisor Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are you considering part-time help?
We have not considered part-time help.
Is
We
that-
did have part-time help to begin with. And that, Karen put that in place, back in 2012, and they did primarily fire safety inspection.
Because I was talking to a retired code enforcement officer / fireman from the city of Glens Falls, and I told him that we had needs up here. And he was curious if he would consider part-time.
Certainly could entertain that, absolutely.
Okay, I will mention that to him and we'll see where it goes, if it goes anywhere, okay?
Supervisor Thomas.
What does a building inspector cost the county per hour per day?
The average pay rate right now is about $33 an hour for people that are in the office. Starting hourly rate is 26 and change.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things we've seen recently is a number of calls from people who are employed at Great Meadow, anticipating Great Meadow's going to close. So we'll work with HR, and we're going to make sure we have a good consolidated list of all the positions we're concerned about and get ads out there for them and try to attract some of these people, because they're not just corrections officers. There are all different types of skills. That it takes to run a prison like that. So we could be able to pick up some people who could do some of the jobs.
Yeah, as you said, there's a lot of facilities, people, operation people to run that place, so there may be individuals that fit us all. That experience. So could be good. Yes.
I just had a quick question for Charles. Do we need to amend the contract that I have with Labella now to add in, because we don't have them and those individuals listed in our current contract with them.
We would need to if the committee or board decides are gonna go this route. Yes.
It may be necessary, it may not be choice, because we can't operate without some qualified inspection people, right?
Well, what is being, not being thought up is as I reported before, the, inspections of existing buildings. And I'm going to, that's just how I set the priorities, is getting work out the door, permits issued, building inspections, and then they are third on the list. If I can bring in one more person, certainly that alleviates some of that. But we're probably 5 or 6 months getting them certified.
What's the back of that with those inspections? I mean,
Of existing buildings, pretty big.
so it'd be good to try not to let it get any worse, if you will, right?
Yeah.
I understand. Okay.
The fee schedule for those are $75 a piece per occupancy. So that's your trade-off, so.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that if maybe we need to get something out there that says that we're interested in full-time or part-time, and maybe the part-time, Charles, you think are they needed more in a certain time of the year than they are in another time of the year? I mean,
Not necessarily, because we try to stay away from do the tourist accommodations in the shoulder season. So we're not interrupting their busy time. So it kind of is spread out throughout the entire year.
right, I think, Mr. Chairman, if we should at least authorize Charles and the county administrator, if they can find part-time people, at the least on the short term, they should be authorized to proceed, and whatever we need to do in terms of budget and paperwork will
Right, we need to create that position. Part-time. They don't have it right now.
right. Well, I'm saying if they interview somebody's interested, I mean, I think they need to be able to move forward.
I agree. What I'm saying is, I agree 100%. But having said that, we need to first create that position. Right? So we should proceed with that. Go ahead.
Right, the question for the county administrator, do we create it unfunded, and then if we find somebody, we'll just transfer into it? Or what's the best way to proceed here?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think what I'd look at first is, I think you have at least one vacant position, right, Charles?
Two.
Okay, so there are 2 vacant positions that are funded, that we can create a part-time position, and we can use some of the salary that's there to fund that position. So yeah, I think there's enough salary available in buildings and grounds to create the positions we need. We'd still have to create the position, though, if we're gonna hire someone part-time.
Right, but I think that what we would be doing, we're creating a position, but we're not doing a transfer at this point in time.
I think we would, but we don't necessarily. But yeah, I mean, we could do it either way.
I'd hate to be transferring out of a full-time position and then later have to come back and move it back in. It would seem to me that you would the opportunity that you create the position and then you would transfer as needed if that presented itself.
I was just gonna add on, because I've done this before, similar to what Charles has done. He's had 2 vacant positions for quite some time, so even, I understand what you're saying, Supervisor Conover, but he's got enough money, because even if you take money out of one of the full-time positions, because he hasn't had somebody in it all year long. So there's money just sitting there that could be used for a part-time person if you create a position.
That answers that. Thank you.
Supervisor Stroud.
All right, why are we looking at a part-time as opposed to a full-time position? Because it seems like we need a full-time position, especially if you're thinking.
My sense is that there are people not willing to work full-time, but we could get them part. correct?
My sense would be people, part-time doesn't pay the bills, full-time, that's what I want.
Pay the bills for who? The individual? There may be an individual that's retired, or whatever, and doesn't want to work full-time, and they have sufficient income to meet their needs, but they would work part-time for the extra money. That's.
All right, I can see, I can see that, okay. Thanks.
Supervisor Thomas.
Yeah, well, we had a full-time position here until about a month ago when the person left. And we've been talking about this for 3 years now. And I guess I kind of wonder why we're in this position. Why hasn't more been done about it?
I think we've tried, we've been trying, I've been talking with Mr. Wallace and Dave Nelson, the administrator, and other people, and there's just nobody there, nobody willing to, go ahead, Mr. Wallace.
I went through to Trish and discussed this multiple times to try to create a position where we brought somebody in that didn't meet the qualifications. So maybe somebody out of high school, train them, so in like an internship position. And then as needed, have somebody in waiting to transition into a full-time position. Where we ran into problems was with civil service laws. We couldn't get past the need to test them when they moved up. And therefore, we had an intern position that they would have had to score in the top 3 to be able to move up. And what do we do with them if they can't score in the top 3? So that's why we're in this position. We couldn't come up with a resolve to have somebody waiting in the position to get, because of the legalities of civil service laws. And short of creating another full-time position, there was no way to offset until the positions became vacant to offset having somebody there.
Right, we've been looking at this meeting, we had 1 or 2 meetings with Mr. Wallace, the administrator, Trish, and if we have someone else there. Trying to find ways to entice people to apply for these positions, but it just hasn't been there. Like so many other things in society today, I'm not sure personally why people, I mean, they may not be the highest paying positions, but if you don't have any work, it's a decent salary and benefits, so I don't know why attract people, but we have been looking at it for, yes.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. One of the challenges we've had too is getting people to take the test and then pass the test and then be on the referral list so that we can hire them. We had success with one person, but it was an internal person that would have hurt us dramatically if that person moved. So we just keep trying. We'll offer the test again, I think, this fall. See if we can get some people qualified who want to take it. That's our challenge across the board with civil service positions. There's no real flexible way to just bring someone in, hire them, train them, and then if they don't pass the test, they can't stay in the position.
So moving forward, as they say, number one, we create this part-time position.
I would have to agree with you, create the part-time position, attach a salary to it. I think I would, in the qualifications, ask for individuals that are currently certified and that experience and go from there and see where we end up.
So we create the position,
Come up with a salary that is
advertise.
comfortable and then see where we end up and try to get people that are already qualified and trained. In this particular case,
Right.
this fireman, whether he's gonna want it, can do it or not. He did say, though, that he was looking for part-time work and he's already certified. And I think that's a good step in the right direction.
I agree. Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we're gonna need to be doing more of this across the board because the labor force just isn't there. And our civil service lists are becoming, in my opinion, pretty anemic. And I would, but if you can find you know, on the edges, in the labor force, be creative, maybe find some part-time people. It might even be a codes person that retired a few years back that wants to come back maybe on a certain basis. But if we don't do these things, I know at the town level, I know we're having to do all these kinds of things.
Need to be more creative in this day and
The only other opportunity would be to cross-train with another department, but my sense is those other departments are pretty strained now as well.
I think we talked about
I
that.
believe we've already looked at that.
Superintendent Hajo's possibly training some of his people, but we haven't done it. And I don't know that maybe those people, maybe nobody would want to do it. I don't know. But,
Well, I mean, if I might, Mr. Chairman, I mean, Mr. Hajos perhaps has a category in his department where perhaps with a stipend might be, create some incentive on a certain basis to go over to code enforcement, to help out with code enforcement as needed. That would be another possibility. I mean, I don't know if there's any interest there. I mean, what we're doing here, what we're groping for is to find, you know, that part of the labor force that is going to be able to meet our mission.
well, yeah, and you need to, as you say, you need to incentivize them, you know, additional stipend. If we're gonna cross-train someone, you know, try to entice them to do this.
Chairman, if I may, just to address that one little piece of a stipend, you have a full-time employee. That employee under the Fair Labor Standards Act will get time and a half for any additional hours over their full-time employment. So the stipend sounds great, but as far as for a full-time employee, that might be problematic with state and federal.
Thank you.
Charlie and I had talked about this, but I think you gotta go through a 6-month training. So any individual that I have in my department, certainly this time of year is not a good time of year for, especially the guys in the engineering department, because some of them are doing 2 or 3 jobs where we used to have other people doing those jobs right now. In the winter months, they could certainly do that and do some of that training. So there is a potential there. And I believe one individual in my department who was interested. As far as stipends go, and I'm not, Larry, you know the legalese on it, but we do pay stipends here in the county, and I do it to my airport guys who are full-time guys because they're paid firefighters as part of Part 139 inspections at the airport, so they're paid a stipend there.
All right, so we're gonna create,
Is this are we creating a part-time position for just the remainder of this year? Or am I looking to fund that through into next year? And we still have 2 full-times that are vacant and now a part-time we're at.
well, first of all, what are your needs? Are you looking for something more than just the rest of the year?
No, what I really would like is 2 full-times.
I understand, but as
but
far as part-time, creating that
that would-
position, you would like something beyond just the remainder of this year, correct?
If we can't fill the
Yeah,
full
right.
times.
I'm just saying, let's stick to part-time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the bottom line is we have funding for the position this year. I think we create the part-time position. If we need to continue it into next year, then we'll address that in the budget cycle.
We need a motion, we need motions to create part-time position. in the
Right.
Personnel.
Right, we'll get to that, but I just want to lay out what we're going to do. First of all, we're going to create this part-time position, a motion. Second of all, we're going to advertise for, maybe we already are.
Yeah.
Advertise for full and part-time in this position with
Right.
qualifications, so to speak, or, you know, minimum qualifications, correct? Okay, so we need a motion to create the part-time position.
I'll put the motion forward.
President Diamond and Supervisor Stroud, second. Any other discussion on this? I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
We should also do a resolution to fund it. Money from both itself.
Okay,
There's plenty of funding, as Kevin pointed out, there's plenty of funding in the building code department.
so we need a resolution.
Can we amend our resolution?
I think so. You okay with that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
We'll amend it.
To
Include movement to
funding through the end of the
end of
year.
the calendar year.
At what level? What's the salary?
To be
Grade
determined.
17.
I don't know what it
It's a
is.
grade 17, 56,303 is the annual. It's like $26 and change. I don't have it with me, I'm sorry.
We're okay with that, grade 17. $30. 28.
It was 50.
Yeah, 56,303, I believe, is what the full-time is advertised for grade 17. Well, probably have it.
You got 2707.
So what's the numbers? He's, oh, okay.
Okay, so grade 17 salary commensurate with that.
and benefits.
Right,
I don't know if you want to get into benefits for a part-time position. I think you put a salary range in that you feel that whatever numbers you've come up with a full-time and put a range in there. But I think our intentions is to hire somebody permanently to go and moving forward. However, we haven't been able to do that. So if it sounds like we need to get someone in here on a part-time basis, and they're gonna have the understanding that it's part-time.
Right.
Our goal is to hire somebody full-time, and maybe they want to become full-time.
Well, I'd just say that, and I'm not sure how the county works, but you do have additional expenses, even if they don't opt for the health insurance, you have retirement, for example. And I don't know if you're allocating money to be set aside on the county level, if you have to put the whole package together to set money aside, or is retirement treated separately? If they do, in fact, join the retirement
Does the budget
program.
officer have any experience in that? You?
What?
Do you have any comment with respect to what Supervisor Strauss brought up?
For retirement, it's usually based on the salary of the department.
Yeah, but my question is.
Yep.
We're setting aside money for this part-time individual.
Right.
And we have a salary schedule, I mean, grade 17, $26 an hour. But there's other expenses associated with hiring somebody, such as. We have to allocate, if they join the retirement system.
Right.
We have to allocate money for that. But if they're already retired and they're doing this as a retirement extra.
Well, just like you would have retirement dollars for a full-time person that was there. Or is budgeted for, you'd have to transfer some of that to cover the part-time.
Yeah, so that was my question exactly. Do we have to transfer more than $26 an hour for a part-time person just to be on the safe side?
Hang on a minute.
I think that's where,
When we do the transfers for these, we always calculate the fringe based upon the salary we're going to transfer.
So we don't have to make it part of our resolution.
We always transfer the
Okay.
salary and fringe based upon that. So we do our FICA, Medicare, and our retirement.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
We all good with that?
And
Yeah.
it confirmed that the salary grade 17 is 56,356, which is 2709 an hour at 2080 hours.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we have the motion, correct?
Yes,
Yes,
Any further discussion? Call the question, all in favor?
I,
Opposed? So that's that. I think we need anything further regarding the advertisement for the positions. Time. We'll do it again next month.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Next up, the airport agenda, right?
Yeah, we can do the airport. No, we can do the airport.
Okay. Have some privilege of the floor. Anybody else? Be out there, want to comment? Buildings and codes, If not, proceed to the open agenda. Of action. Agenda, new business items. I'll let have Mr. Hajos take that.
Sure. So the first request is to establish a capital project and rationale is the demolition and construction of 6 bay T hangars. Capital project H431. As you guys know, we have 2 buildings housing 12 T hangars that were built in the 1940s. This is a 2.5 million state grant to demolish one of those buildings consisting of 6 bays and rebuilding that T hanger. I will see a slight improvement in our annual revenue from $20,000 to $27,000 per year once completed.
Okay, so again, this is funding is 90%. Plus match is 10%. Okay, need a motion. Supervisor Gerasi, Supervisor Thomas on the second. Any further discussion?
Just one question, Robin. So we're taking out 12 of the old hangars.
One building containing 6 bays. So there are 2 buildings with 6 bays.
Yeah,
Demolishing one.
okay. So we're taking out 6 and replacing with 6. Okay, good.
Any further questions? What was the question? All in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next.
Second one related to that project, there's a new contract with McFarland Johnson for design, bidding, construction, administration, and inspection for the same project, demolition and construction of the 6 bay T hanger project. This at a cost of $304 million. Questions regarding McFarland Johnson's involvement in the project?
So this 304,000, is that part of the
Yes.
1.5?
Yes.
Okay, we need a motion.
Move.
Supervisor Thomas, Supervisor Diamond on the second. Any discussion, any questions, comments? If not, I'll put the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Number 3.
Number 3, increase capital project. This is increased capital project H403. This is the taxiway lighting project. Capital project H403 was 100% FAA funded. This increase of roughly $11,000 would be 90% FAA funded. During construction of that project, they found some damage while they're doing some work. They decided to replace that damage at the same time. Very minor cost of the county.
Very good. Motion regarding this. Supervisor Diamond. Supervisor Strong, second. Discussion, any questions? Comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Fourth, miscellaneous.
So I'll take that one. This is to amend a contract with Highlight. Highlight is a Sourcewell contract, similar to what an ODS contract would be. Originally, we had established this contract back in 2020 to do striping on the airport based on inspections or FAA inspections, Part 139 inspections. the following year, 2020, we did this based on what we've experienced with FAA and, wanting the repainting done just about every year. We had bumped it up to have it as just an annual amount not to exceed $50,000. FAA came into the inspections this year, and based on their inspections, and what more they want for markings for us, we reached out to Highlight, and it was a increase to 77,000 for this year's work. So we have funding already in our budget, but we're looking to amend the contract to move forward with the 77,000, which would be 27,000 above our existing contract with Highlight.
So this is contract modification.
Correct.
We need a motion.
I'll make the motion. And I got one question.
Second by Supervisor Connell. Questions?
So Kevin, we're just changing the, say, not to exceed 50,000 to not to exceed $77,805.50.
Yeah, it's not to exceed 50,000 contract is what the original says. This would allow for a one-time increase for a total of 98,000 for this year. And that's for all of the work for them to be done. So I added their estimate on there, and I'll let Robin kind of break down the totals.
Sure. We have done some previous work with pilots throughout the year. So once we added those two estimates together, what we completed before, with this estimate, we arrived at that $98,000 one-time increase. The biggest challenge is that the runway usually is the biggest cost driver as it relates to markings. So only a one-time increase because we don't normally have to keep going back and repair.
All right,
So we'll
so,
go back to the 50,000 a year after this.
all right, so our motion for now is not to exceed 98,000. That's correct. Just amending the old motion. Yep. Okay, and I'm fine with that, and I made the seconded the motions.
Some Supervisor Connell or second.
Conover made the motion. Okay.
Supervisor Thomas, did you have a question?
Yeah, this is only for 2024.
That's correct. Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Not to call the question, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Any opposed?
Thank you, Judge.
Last but not least. Buildings and grounds. Good, privilege of the floor there. Anybody have any? comment? Buildings and grounds. No action. Discussion items. Let Mr. Rogers take that.
Okay, discussion items, the work order request for program as of today is at 5,016. Number two, the fleet car request program is at 3,571 to date. For the regional board, which then turned over to
Right, we're gonna
half one.
get that a little bit later, that and the Joseph Warren Museum, so.
So I'll give a little update then on the court project. The court project is all but complete. They're doing some minor punch list items to complete. We believe, Frank, I know you've been looking for this number for quite some time, that we're going to have approximately $200,000 left at the end of the, I want to say 12-year or 10-year, $6 million court project. So that's where we're at right now, is about $200,000 left. And we're now looking at the front entrance work. The first would be the stairs coming into the front entrance and then the drainage area out there. And we're going to see how far we can stretch that $200,000 for this year. But the first thing, we're actually looking at the possibility of removing the steps altogether and just maybe providing some type of handicap accessibility. If we do any work on those steps now, we were always grandfathered in before, but based on ADA compliance, if we're going to rebuild those steps or do anything, we're going to have to follow some ADA compliance. So that might be the case, that we just remove the steps altogether and put some type of ramp in the front entrance. But we're not 100% sure yet, but that's what we're looking at right now.
So. The referral and pending items, then we'll take the regional morgue and the Joseph Warren Museum.
So the first one was the drainage, the front update to the front entrance, which I just gave, but we're always dependent upon how much money was left over from the court. As you all know, in the Ring Road 2, there's a significant drainage issue in the front, so we're gonna try to correct them and see how far that $200,000 will carry us. It won't get us through the plan, certainly won't get us through the plan that Labella had provided us. But that may be something that we discussed during budget season. As far as the magnetometer at DMV, I know the committee asked for us to put out a bid. We have since spoken with the undersheriff, and they are going after a grant. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll-
I'll turn it over to you.
After conversation with, Under Sheriff Cuomo, he is getting and filing for a grant, which they can file for in September and will be funded in January. They're going to purchase one, magnetometer and put it at the DMV entrance and keep the existing one over in HSB as that one is working fine. So that's,
Magnetometer to be installed DMV
correct.
is standard, or is that the?
It's one of the ones we looked at, which is the Evolve system.
Right.
It's one of the
So
ones.
it's much smaller profile.
Smaller profile, but
That's
better,
getting-
yep, better points of interest to where it'll scan the person as they go through. Yep, so it'll actually, there won't be a line or anything outside. They can just simply walk through as long as they don't have any metal objects on them that are identified as a weapon. They'll be able to go on about their business.
So we'll look for that possibly in twenty
January.
twenty-five.
Yep. Correct.
Okay. Additionally, we had back in. We talked about improvements to the boardroom. That's still on the radar.
It is, I'll let John talk to it. It hasn't been a pressing issue, so we've had a lot of other work going on, so, but it's still on our plate. We'll look at.
What I wanted. All right, so now.
Mr. Chairman, just on those lines, yesterday, many of us sitting in the back of the room was very, very difficult to hear. Is there any chance that we could have a lot of these committee meetings moved to the full board where the sound system is better and everybody can hear clearer? Because, it's frustrating for us, even when committee members are sitting here and they're kind of conversing back and forth with each other. You can't hear what's being said. It's tough to follow the meeting that way. So you and I were talking a little bit about that, and I just wanted to mention that to maybe the chairman would consider that to conduct some of these meetings that in the full boardroom, because I think it sits vacant, unused for quite a bit of the day. It's a thought.
Good point. Administrator Top.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think what we should do is move forward then with, talk to Kevin about using some of the contractors that we have, the contracts he has to come in and take a look at both the boardroom and the committee room. I think it's time we move forward on making some enhancements there. Not only do we have issues with sound here, we do periodically have issues with sound in the boardroom, and we have problems with video in the boardroom. It's probably time we get all this upgraded to a point where we can conduct meetings where everyone can hear and participate in. We'll move forward.
Yeah, I mean, for this room, and to ask, to kind of let Supervisor Diamond know, it's the heat pumps and it's the air conditioning we have it on. I mean, and I think today, Dave, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yes, so I think it's, when we run the air conditioners in the summer months, it's significantly loud. We have one here and one there, and it drowns out every other sound in this room. We can certainly look at, I mean, we shut them off.
What I do is
We shut them off for committee as much as we remember to shut. 'em off.
I text my secretary all the time when they come on and say, turn them off. But then if it gets hot in here, then we have to turn them back on to.
Well, I think it could be a little helpful if people spoke directly into the microphone. And it might make it a little bit easier for us to understand in the back of the bill, back of the room.
Right.
Yeah.
What controls the volume? Is there a volume control?
Over there.
It's over there.
Right over there.
So-
We have to be careful because often when you play with that, you get feedback. So
Right.
it's a happy medium. We tried that. You all probably been in the room when we tried adjusting that and get this screech. So
Well, maybe we need someone to look at that.
someone to look at it again.
Yeah.
I think Mike Colvin was looking at redoing some of the, besides just the video, some of the speaker system and microphone system as well.
Looking at it.
He was looking at it for specifically for the boardroom. But it may be that he could do it in here as well.
We need to do something.
Yeah.
Because it is a problem,
Good point.
big problem. Because Supervisor Diamond and I were sitting back there at the Octex
Yes.
committee meeting.
We couldn't hear a thing.
It was almost useless for us to sit there. Couldn't hear what was going on, so that was the point. So. Need to do some investigation as a minimum.
We'll
Yes.
take that on.
Thank you. So now we will, Administrator Tappan will do some updates on the regional morgue and the Joseph Warren Museum.
Okay, the update on the regional morgue or regional forensic center will be pretty quick. We have scheduled a meeting August 7th with all the county coroners in this area who probably would be representing counties who would use the regional facility. So I've talked to a great number of the county administrators. I believe at this point that the chance of getting capital funds to help us build a facility are probably a stretch. I think that would be difficult to do for most counties. But every county I've talked to has said they would like to participate. The key for us is going to be to get the coroners in so we can figure out what their annual use for autopsies is, so that we can at least compile something that tells us, our big issue here is, can we be self-supported? We don't want to take on and build a regional forensic center that we then have to fund because not everyone's using it. So we need something in the form of formal commitments from those counties that they would use our facility. And that's what we hope to at least start that conversation on August 7th and move forward from that point.
I just wanted to add on to that, John, real quick, is we're asking those coroners to kind of give us their annual budget too, their numbers, and what they're spending right now for that, so that we know if that's even gonna work for us. If, as John said, if we're gonna be able to sustain that building, without it costing the county any money. So we're asking them to bring their budget numbers as well. John, you probably would have those kind of for. some of the-
Yeah, I can get it from Connie, and Connie asked me to attend that meeting, so.
Yeah, and this, I might add, this discussion, this regional forensics center, this is a problem that's looming. It's going to become more of a problem. As we've said in previous discussions, hospitals, which heretofore have undertaken to conduct autopsies, no matter which type they are, forensic or otherwise, are getting out of that. And it's a requirement that we provide, we need to have autopsies as part of the Department of Health requirements, I believe. So some way we need to address this now or down the road, because it's going to become more of an issue. Supervisor Thomas.
Yeah, we should reach out to our legislators if we haven't, and also the governor's office. And seek some funding for this. I mean, this is a state, as much a state issue as it is Warren counties and the regions.
Amen.
So I think we need to get them. With
We
us
have the
here.
planning department looking
us.
for different types of grants and funding opportunities through the state, so.
But to your point, we need to directly contact
I think,
our representatives and send a letter to the governor. For what that's worth. Roger Connell.
Yeah, I mean, there are different ways of, modeling this, constructing this. I mean, I think the idea of a consortium where one county takes the lead is one way, but I really think something like this really belongs in its own district established by, state law where, not unlike, for example, Capital District, that each county, based on the formula, contributes X. But there's a lot to this, which not only, and includes the operation of this facility going forward, hiring and firing, and it's dealing with a lot of medical and investigatory, and there's an awful lot to this. And I think that having everybody, legislatively tied together, I think is probably the best way to proceed, I would think.
We'll,
County attorney and I will look into establishing an option that establishes a regional authority like we have for CDTA. That would require the counties to contribute a certain percentage to keep the board running.
Possibly based on population. It's not a quick, easy, or inexpensive route, but it would certainly tie everybody in to it. I've not heard of one used for this purpose, but they do use them downstate for other purposes, solid waste, to make more efficiencies of scale.
Yeah, I think you could model something here. I mean, whether you use it once or use it 100 times, I mean, you have a minimum cost of the facility, right? In other words, the capital costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's those costs over and above that. So I think that some reasonable structure could be put together. There may be examples of it elsewhere.
could be other parts of the country even, but, again, to your point, Mr. Ellman, we haven't done this before. This is new and it's coming, and before it becomes, and it will become a big financial burden on top of everything else we have. So we want to try to get ahead of it or stay even with it. So I think,
One of the worst positions to be in is to build it and nobody comes, because then we have it, and using it. So if there is a broad-based desire and a need, let's look at options that might tie in people in a more formal way.
Right.
Rather than Warren County leading the charge, only to find out when you get to the top of the hill, there's only 2 or 3 other counties with you.
Right, and I think that some of them, like I vaguely remember the Capital District, they started with a certain group of counties. And that the participation was based on a certain formula, but then as other counties, ourselves included, were added, there was another formula. If you came on later, I believe it was a part of our mortgage tax. It is what was established by statute, I believe. And so there wasn't any, well, let's negotiate on this matter, although maybe we would have preferred that. This is really, I think, Mr. Chairman, as you well know, is really a very no-nonsense enterprise here. This is not, like I say, it not only includes the medical side, but the investigatory side and everything else.
absolutely. So we'll continue our efforts with respect to this regional forensic facility. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to get back, if I might, to another item. If it doesn't cost us anything, maybe a modification of our consulting agreements to include building inspection would be a good thing to do. If we don't need it, we don't use it. It doesn't cost us anything, but if we do need to use it, we have it in the wings.
I think Superintendent Hajos is going to proceed with that.
If I can, I didn't have it on my agenda for today because I didn't know what Charlie was doing, but I can certainly amend our contract with our consultants who have that building inspection capacity. I can certainly to include those titles.
mean, hopefully, we're never gonna need it, but I'm just thinking, it doesn't cost us anything, I don't believe, to have that sitting in the wings, should it be needed. I mean, if a major project comes along, we have to review a major project. We don't have the staff, you know, we don't wanna be holding up.
You're right. I thought that was a foregone conclusion, so to speak, after discussions with Mr. Wallace, but we will do that. Thank you. Okay, I think that's it for the forensic center, Joseph Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a meeting on Monday with the Warren County Historical Society to talk about other options. This committee tasked us last time. See if there was a way that we could bring the cost of around $1 million for the Joseph Warren Museum down to a more reasonable amount. And there were a number of suggestions. One is just do one floor, the first floor, and have the facility there. And also then there were issues with that. So the bottom line is when we came down to what we would redesign it as with maybe vinyl siding and things, and less definitive windows, treatments, 6-panel windows and things like that. It will require, talking to Kevin, it will require Labella to do an additional design. If we're going to try to send that back out for bid for a lesser cost. So we would be entailing, some additional general fund money cost to do the design. During the discussion, we learned from the Warren County Historical Society that Shane Newell had come down the end of June and removed all the items that the Warren County Historical Society had in their existing headquarters. He's moving his collection to Hope College in Connecticut, where he has accepted a position as an adjunct faculty member to do courses on Joseph Warren and also to be the curator for his collection. He hopes to move his collection to Boston for the 250th anniversary of the Revolution. And then the intent is ultimately to move it back to Hope College, where it will be permanently housed. At that point, we asked if there was an opportunity to maybe have it moved to Warren County if we had an existing facility at that time. And, you know, the Historical Society really couldn't commit to that. They don't know what his intentions are at that point. So the bottom line is they have come forward with another proposal to establish a research and education center for Warren County that incorporates a place for historical and genealogical research. The education and county's namesake would be included via the panels that were already created, and the building would offer students at all levels a place to come for research and any aspect of the history of Warren County. The county attorney and I have not gone into great detail on this document as to how we could construct it, but if that was the intent for this facility, we find it very difficult to believe that we'd be able to use occupancy tax to create this facility because it wouldn't really be a tourist link as much as the museum would be. So that was a little bit clearer when we were using occupancy tax. So if we do get the cost down, if we're willing to go forward with a redesign by Labella and spend the money for that, and we can get the cost down to, we don't expect it to go below $600,000 or $700,000. I don't think, you know, but it's hard to say. But if we got it down to that amount, we'd have to use general fund money to fund it. I'll throw another dilemma in for your consideration. I've been in discussion with the Commissioner of Social Services, who has been told through New York State that there's a possibility she has about $100,000 in Code Blue money, and she's been told by the state that she could possibly get additional Code Blue funding from the state. And she asked about the possibility of using that building as a county Code Blue shelter. for the winter months. So that's another option for the building. So I turn that over to the committee at this point. I know 3 of the committee members were at the Joseph Warren Museum discussion.
Thank you. Administrator, Treasurer Stroud.
Yeah, well, what I took from that conversation was pretty basic. Enlarging the scope of what the Warren County Historical Society wanted to do, rather than focus on Joseph Warren, is to create a Warren County Museum. Most of the 62 counties have a county museum. We don't. So we have a lot of artifacts. For example, artifacts that came from the Great Expansion. That was a heavily utilized Native American site. And we have hundreds of artifacts, but no place to show them, no place big enough to show them. So if we could make the first floor, Warren County Historical Society, in conjunction with Warren County, a county museum displaying these artifacts. Yeah, there will be a little set aside because I gave them enough materials from Joseph Warren, related to Joseph Warren, for them to create a Joseph Warren presence. And still pay homage to Joseph Warren as part of the museum. But again, the museum would be enlarged to include, the French and Indian War and the Revolutionary War, as well as the Native American artifacts. It would expand to include a lot of these things that we have in storage. We don't have the room to show. And really focusing on trying to reduce the cost to just basically doing the first floor. And the second floor, maybe just cutting it out and sheet rocking and painting it, but leave it open. And, there's a historical society, put their research center and so forth up there. So, so that was it. The expansion of the idea to Warren County Museum, and 2, focus on just 1 floor and cutting the expenses down to hopefully even less than what's been said, but we won't know until and if we go out and rebid.
Correct. Any other comments regarding this?
Yeah, I got a comment, based on what we took place yesterday, if we put lights around the outside of it, we could probably get 50,000.
Okay, very good. Anything else?
Well,
We'll continue the.
yeah, real quick. I mean, without the artifacts that we're talking about moving to Connecticut, why would we look, why would we look to invest in a project like that where we don't have the artifacts that we're need?
Well, if we were concentrating strictly on Joseph Warren, that's a good point. But if we're creating
No,
a county
well,
museum.
yeah, part B of my comment is many of our communities have museums. I have 2. I know Chester, Johnsburg, many others. So I can't speak for them. I'd love to have some Warren County artifacts and set aside an area for Warren County. Lake George offered in the heart of downtown. I mean, you have all the volume of people right there versus driving to a separate location. I can't speak for City of Glens Falls, but many city halls have an area of artifacts. So I think there's other options especially for items that are in storage. I'm not discounting the value of it, the importance of it. But I think there may be some options for that.
But I will say that with respect to, a specific county museum, aside from municipalities and museums and everybody's, but when you concentrate that and it's destination in a location that gets a lot of traffic and is easily accessible, more readily accessible than a lot of the others, that's what improves it and makes it a more viable entity. So we'll continue the discussion and I think it's good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the question we'd have for the committee today is, do you want us to, do we want to just postpone this, have this discussion continuing, or do you want us to move forward and do a redesign of the facility? That's,
I think we need to first get an idea of what the redesign would cost. See where we go. Yes,
I would think the redesign shouldn't cost very much. I mean, they've already spent $140,000 designing this. I mean,
right, the redesign is
if
probably.
they're an engineering firm, I mean, we should be talking
It's
10
gonna
or
be
$20,000.
more removing what's, things that have been done already, and then modifying some of the
Come on.
aspects to fit that.
Yeah, there will, first of all, I keep hearing this $140,000. It's not $140,000. We've only spent 104 with the Labella as of this time. There will be some effort by them to redo the plans to be able to put out to bid. Yes, it's quick enough for them because they have the electronic files to eliminate things in there. But again, there will be some amount of effort that they would want to be compensated for. I just don't know what that is until we decide what specifically we want to do.
So we first need to get an idea what the cost would be to do the quote redesign. Any other questions, comments?
Need a motion for that? Consensus or?
I think it's just a matter of me going through the plans. I mean, if we're looking at the first floor, like we discussed in the meeting the other day, we're still gonna need the HVAC system in there, and there still will be some other updates that we have to do to that first floor area. And if we're gonna either gut or not gut the second floor and just put sheetrock, that's up to the committee if they want to do that. I mean, if we're just gonna concentrate on the first floor, I could certainly start going through that estimate, the engineer's estimate that was provided to us, and start crossing out what is not needed as part of that project.
Well, because you're looking at doing HVAC and like you pointed out, that's gonna be what it is. But if you're going to gut it out, take the plaster and lath and whatever else is there out of there. And you still have asbestos removal,
Especially if
And-
base paint. Yep.
but the second floor doesn't need to be partitioned off. It doesn't need a bathroom. It could just be open space for now. But again, for the electrical runs and the HVAC runs, they're gonna have to gut it out, re-sheet rock it and insulate it, re-sheet rock it. But at a minimum, keep it at a minimum. The first floor, I think the way that Labella has designed it is just fine with everybody and would work with a wider scope of a Warren County Museum. So if we can convey that to Labella and ask for a price, that doesn't cost anything to ask for a price, and then come back to this board and see what they think.
Right, you can get a budget number from them without much effort, so to speak, and cost. Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I think getting an estimate and the revision, I think all that, but I would get a project number. And whatever I put in front of the board, I would ask the board, this is what we're looking at, voted up or voted down. So we don't go out and spend money on something that only gets, voted down later, and we've got some wonderful people that are committing their time and energy and interest in this, and I don't want to jerk them around at all. And so, for example, if the redesign is, I'm just going to use the numbers, is $30,000 or $35,000, and it's a project that we estimate to be $500,000, $400,000, that's what should be put in front of the board. And then voted up or voted down. That's how I see it. And to your point, that and that's important because now we're may be out of the occupancy tax world and into the fund balance world, and at a time when we're being hard pressed on that front as well. So I think it's very important to put the complete question in front of the board. And then if they vote it up, then you can move forward and you know that you can expect,
Well, we'll let Mr. Hajos take a look at it, come back next month. Further discussion and see where we go from there, whether we go anywhere or continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So back to my other point, on the Code Blue shelter. Is it the committee's consensus that we do not consider that as a Code Blue shelter? We continue to focus as some type of a museum for Warren County, because I'll tell the Commissioner of Social Services to start looking for another building. She has $100,000 that have to be spent this fall.
We've, you know, we've used that facility, if my memory's right, for a quote blue shelter before. But keep in mind that the users during the worst times in terms of weather needed to be bused up there. So that's another aspect of the using it as a blue shelter is not well located for that purpose.
Good point. That's good.
you're correct.
Okay. Right, thank you. We'll continue these discussions. Any further comments? Privilege of the floor. Any members of the public or supervisors? Our treasurer.
Yes. Hi, thank you. My question is, why couldn't we look at both options? I understand the Warren Museum, but I mean, we're just kind of making some high level comments about, and I don't know enough about this blue zone, but and where these people are being bussed in from, but if there's a real need for a blue zone, can we not look at them and present them to this committee as two options and then decide what we want to do?
Good.
Does that make sense to have a code blue location there? Does it make sense?
I personally don't think so, but that's just me.
I mean, if it doesn't make sense based on what we just heard and for other reasons, it's,
Why spin your wheels?
yeah.
I'm just curious because I don't know, where are we busing them up from?
I don't know either. I mean, I could tell you possibly Queensbury, Glens Falls, other areas. I mean, it's just not a good.
If the county treasurer would like a briefing on Code Blue shelters, we'd be glad to do that, set something up separately.
That's fine.
Hey, no other comments, no
But lights are on.
public supervisors. If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Supervisor Stroud on the motion. Supervisor Harass on the second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.